You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 44. This week on the show, we got a packed one lined up for you. We cover all of our standard segments, and then we're going to be joined by Luke Clark, Public Relations and Media Manager for Rig'Em Right Waterfowl. All right, welcome everyone to the 44th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We're your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. If you'd like to catch up with HP Outdoors, you can do so at hpoutdoors.com. If you're interested in catching up on our past episodes of the show, you can do so on iTunes, as well as on our website. If you're so inclined, you can subscribe to the show via iTunes and get all of our new material pushed out to you automatically. And you can also track us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, all of that good stuff. For the Facebook users out there, if you'd like to continue the conversation with us offline, you can do so by joining the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast listeners group, where a bunch of the listeners of the show are in there talking fowl and just a lot of different things. So a really good spot to kind of, stay in touch with us, throughout the week. Joining me, as he always does, Dan Harushka. Dan, what is up, man?
Well, let's see here. It is Friday night, and we're sitting here recording, and actually after work today I went and got my hair cut, and it's about a month overdue. And when the barber was done, he's like, yeah, your hair blended in perfectly with your beard. And I was like, well, you're not talking about the color, right? And he said, yeah, definitely not the color, obviously, for anyone that's seen a picture of me. And this just helps me drive home the point that when you get your canvas mount back, every time you look at it, you're going to think about my beard.
I will never think about your beard when I look at that bird.
Yes, you will.
But you're bent on making that a reality. But anyway, that couldn't have been more random.
Yep.
But anyway, well, this week we've got a good one lined up. As I mentioned, we're going to be joined by Luke Clark, Public Relations Manager and Media Manager for Rig'Em Right Waterfowl. So we're going to chat with him a little bit about Rig'Em Right, some products that they offer, but also, a little bit about the company, and more so, try to get him to pull the curtain back a little bit for us and tell us a little bit what it's like behind the scenes there at Rig'Em Right. We're also going to have our normal news segments, Ask HP. Our bird profile this week is going to be the Black-Bellied Whistling Duck, Black-Bellied Whistling Duck, which very well could be the last duck that we ever profile on this show. And we're also going to have our retriever training quick tip of the week, brought to you by Barton Ramsey and Southern Oak Kennels. So lots of good stuff lined up. Don't want to drag this out any longer than we have to, Dan. So let's go ahead and roll right into it, this week's Waterfowl News segment. All right, Dan, why don't you go ahead and start us off with this week's news?
It sounds good, and it's kind of a bad news, good news situation. The Shawnee National Forest designates a new waterfowl refuge area. So we're looking in Jonesboro, Illinois, and it's kind of confusing because it says the scarcity of quality waterfowl area has caused the Shawnee National Forest to designate a new waterfowl refuge area, which I didn't think there was much of that in Illinois, but apparently there is. So this new area is at the Oakwood Bottoms Green Tree Reservoir, and this is a very popular place for hunting, fishing, nature viewing, all that, and it will be designated for waterfowl from October 31st, 2015 through January 12th, 2016, which means it's going to be closed 14 days prior to waterfowl hunting season to the end of waterfowl hunting season. It's going to be on a trial period for 3 to 5 years with the possibility of becoming more permanent. And the waterfowl refuge closure is supposed to help increase the number of resident and migratory waterfowl using Oakwood Bottoms. And, it's kind of, taking away a little bit of hunting from people, but at the same time, I think long term is going to put a lot more birds in the area. And coming from, me and you being around Pymatuning, that is a huge refuge, that you're always going to have a huge resident population when you have a refuge like this. So in long term, it's good, but I'm sure that there are some people in that area that aren't very excited about it at this current moment.
Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that one. That's, that's a tough spot. I mean,
and it says
I haven't read
those found in violation within the waterfowl refuge area between October 31st and January 12th will be ticketed. So for any more information needed, call Chad Deaton, wildlife biologist with the Shawnee National Forest, 618-833-8576. And you can talk to him about the outlines, but it looks like there is some posters and some metal signs put up with the refuge boundary.
I gotta believe that, I'm really not a fan of shutting any area off completely. I don't really know what the scenario is out there, and I don't know what's motivating them to do this, at the end of the day, but I would have liked to see them, instead of shutting it off completely for a trial period, maybe they try to scale back the opportunities, maybe make the refuge open, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or do a lottery system where they regulate, certain days it's going to be open, and they're going to regulate the numbers of guys that get in there and hunt, something like that, if they want to take some of the pressure off. But just to completely shut it down, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you.
They could draw blinds or something, and it even says in there, this coincides with the beginning of the 2015 waterfowl season to provide resting and feeding areas for tens of thousands of waterfowl. So if you have tens of thousands migrating through, they should be able to hunt those. But if you are trying to get more of a resident population, maybe even, wait till later in the year to open it up or something of that sort. But like I said, 3 to 5 years are starting out and possibly becoming permanent. So that's my story.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for me, I don't have much better news. And this story really kind of impacts me personally, close to home here. And this isn't a story that I read on the news or found online. This is one that I've experienced personally and figured I'd share it with everyone listening to this show. So I get my cable phone and internet service through Verizon Fios. And when I signed up for Verizon Fios, I was required to pay an extra monthly fee to receive the sports package channels that I wanted, to include Outdoor Channel, Sportsman's Channel, Big Ten Network, some of these other shows, channels that I like, that kind of stuff. So, I set my DVR, because my wife pretty much controls the TV along with my 4-year-old son. So I set the DVR to record the shows that I care about, waterfowl related. And when I get an opportunity, I watch them. And I went to watch some shows the other day and realized that the Sportsman's Channel was no longer available. And I kind of thought maybe this was, an error or something like that. But I got online and I, quick Google search. Turns out Verizon terminated their contract with Sportsman's Channel as of September 1st. So they cited low viewership, rising costs, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. First of all, this irritates me because I never actually got the Sportsman's Channel in HD. It was always in standard definition, which irritated me to no end because I pretty much don't watch standard definition TV except for the Sportsman's Channel. So then they take that away. But the article that I found had said the Outdoor Channel still remained, So I was like, okay, that's not the end of the world. So here we are. Just this week, I get on to look at watch some shows on Outdoor Channel, and they have canceled the Outdoor Channel as well as of October 1st. So now I literally have one exclusively outdoor programming channel, and it's like the World Fishing Network or something like that. So I no longer have an outdoor channel through Verizon Fios that is strictly hunting and fishing type programming. As an alternative, they told me that I should look at Discovery Channel, Nat Geo Wild, and the History Channel for similar programming. And I'm thinking that they're high because that's not the same kind of programming. And to make things worse, it's not like I'm seeing any kind of reduction in cost in my monthly bill. So my message is, and my story this week is, it's clear that Verizon Fios does not value what outdoor enthusiasts bring to their company and the program that we care about. So, I'm right now in the process of shopping around for a new cable provider, and hopefully have one here in the near future. So if you're somewhere where you're considering either obtaining new cable services or changing, providers, I would recommend that you look elsewhere other than Verizon Fios, if at all possible. So unfortunately, not a great story, but that's the one I got for you this week, and that's your waterfowl news of the week. And now we will just roll right into it, Dan. My favorite segment of the week, the Ask HB question of the week.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
This week's Ask HP question is brought to you by Higdon Outdoors. Quality service and innovation. That's Higdon Outdoors. Check out HigdonDecoys.com for all of your waterfowl decoy needs. All right, Dan, this week's question comes from Andy. This is from the Waterfowls listeners group again. Any tips for hunting during a thunderstorm?
Am I up? I'm guessing I'm up. Yeah, so I think if there's thunder, I'm not too worried about it. Being in a field or on water, if I see any lightning, I'm pretty much going to shut it down. And, not just storms like this, but it brings me to another point that people should be aware of, and that is always check the weather before you go out, especially if you're going on water. And I think I mentioned it before, myself and a buddy got in a boat and we were heading out and we got hit with, 25, 30 mile an hour winds that we just did not know we were going to get hit with. And, the lake that we were on, when you get between a couple islands and that wind comes flying through, it can kick up some waves because it's a shallow lake. And, fortunately we made it back to shore, but we were very close to being one of those casualty numbers just because we were not aware of what was going to hit us. So, storms, Mother Nature can be a nasty, nasty person. And, speaking of that, Mexico's getting hit with 205 mile an hour winds from a hurricane right now, but that's not what we're talking about. Anyways, lightning, I shut it down. Thunder, I've had some good hunts in thunder and, pouring down rain. So I wouldn't be afraid in that situation, but the first sight of lightning, I'm going to be out.
I'm erring on the side of caution with this completely. So if I see lightning, obviously you can forget about it. If I'm hearing thunder, I'm not one that's going to push it. I'm not that mad at them. I don't need to be out there trying to, kill birds in crazy weather. But this is what I will say. Pretty much like every other kind of species, that we pursue, you can see really good action after a front moves through. And I'm not saying like the next day. I'm saying like within an hour or so at the conclusion of the storm. So just because, if it's calling for rain or severe weather during a certain period of time, you might just want to plan your hunt a little bit different during the day because, the birds, just like deer and stuff, when weather gets bad, like we've talked about, they're worried about a handful of things in their entire life: food, shelter, survival. Like, they're just trying to make it to tomorrow. So they're not going to be so inclined to do anything crazy when the weather's really severe either. So you don't need to risk yourself because you think that you're going to get that hunt of a lifetime in a lightning storm. But after that storm moves through, if that storm comes in from the north and it's bringing some, front with it, there might be some new birds pushing into your area and it could be great really quick. But, also that morning flight or whatever might get kind of grounded until that storm gets through. So your best flight might be a little bit different time during the day. So definitely consider that. I'm not saying to scrap it, but there's no duck in the world that's worth, putting yourself at risk, safety wise. So, definitely give that a thought. And like Dan said, pay attention to the weather, get a good app on your phone, make sure you know what you're going to be dealing with in the time that you're going to be out in the field. So that's your Ask HP question of the week. Thank you to Andy for helping us out this week, and shoot us a direct message on, whatever social media or email your choice, and we'll get a barrel sticker out to you for your efforts. So If you got a question that you'd like to hear us discuss on the show, send us an email at info@hpoutdoors.com or hit us on social media. And if we choose your question, you will also receive a free barrel decal for helping us out. All right, Dan, we've talked about this, and we think that it is time. We hinted at this a couple times already, and we think it's time to finally, unfortunately, pull the plug on this segment. So for the final time, the bird profile of the week. And this week we're going to go out with the Black-Bellied Whistling Duck.
Makes me a little sad to go through this, but here we go. The Black-Bellied Whistling Duck. The male is 19.4 inches, the female is 19, and the male is 1.8 pounds, and the female is 1.85. So, like the cinnamon teal, the female is a little bit shorter, a little bit chubbier. In the description, the male and female black-bellied whistling duck are similar in size and color. In general, the black-bellied whistling ducks are long-legged, long-necked, and most erect of all ducks. They have a black belly and a chestnut nape, lower neck, chest, and back. A chestnut cap tops the head. They boast a bright orange bill, a gray face, and an upper neck, and white eye ring. And the long pink legs are easily observed while they are perched in trees. And they are vociferous in flight, uttering a whistling peachy-chee. And breeding, the northern race breeds in southern Texas through coastal Mexico and Central America. Pairs most often partner for life and share the responsibilities of incubation and brood rearing. Nests are usually located in tree cavities, nest boxes, or on the ground in grassy areas, or underbrush or cacti near water. Ground nesting is most common where mammalian nest predators are absent. And female black-bellied whistling ducks lay an average of 13 eggs, and several females lay in the same nest. So a little bit of group therapy there.
Yeah, that's kind of neat how they go together there. Maybe safety in numbers or something, I don't know. But the black-bellied whistling ducks are migratory in sort of the northern and southernmost limits of their range. So large flocks can be seen in the wintering areas in the lowlands of Mexico. Though they were formerly sort of more abundant to the interior part of Mexico than they are currently. In the U.S., they winter primarily in the southern sort of coastal Texas region, and they are widespread and common in Central America and South America, south to Argentina area. So if you're heading down south and going to go on a hunt down there, you'll probably encounter some of these ducks. They are abundant down in that area, and as a matter of fact, the black-bellied whistling ducks are actually susceptible to over-harvest due to their sort of unwary nature, so can be an easy target for you there. The black-bellied whistling ducks they commonly feed at night on grain, seeds, and some insects, mollusk leaves, and shoots found in fields and shallow water. So definitely a duck that you're going to encounter likely if you head down to Central America on that hunt of a lifetime, and one that's widespread through that region and makes up a good bit of many bag limits that come down that way. So as we mentioned, end of the road for this segment. So I guess a good way to go out with the black-bellied whistling duck. All right, Dan, I guess we're gonna have to try to find something maybe to fill that time from here on out, but yep. Don't really have anything currently in the pipeline to fill that slot.
It made a good run, and I think a lot of people learned a lot, and I know I learned a lot of about birds that are not local here. So I really enjoyed that, and I'm sad that we ran out of birds.
Yeah, I mean, it really kind of ended up being one of those things where we were getting down into the weeds of the type of birds that we were covering, and at that point you become sort of a depreciating asset there as far as how much value we're really pulling show-wise for that. So time to turn the page and go on to something new, which we're happy to do, and hopefully we can get something new and engaging for you guys in the near future. So, all right, let's move on to one of our newest segments of the show, and this week's quick retriever. Man, this is like a tongue twister for me. A retriever training quick tip, who every week brought to you by Barton Ramsey and Southern Oak Kennels. And this week Barton gets into something as far as working with dogs and field blinds, And he part of the reason why he gets into that is because we've got Rig'Em Right Waterfowl on the show this week, and they make some of the best dog blinds in the market. So let's go ahead and play the clip and see what you guys think on the other side. This is Barton Ramsey with Southern Oak Kennels.
Hey guys, this is Barton Ramsey from Southern Oak Kennels coming to you with your retriever training quick tip of the episode. Understand the guys from Rig'Em Right are on the episode this week, and so I want to talk a little bit about working with dog field blinds, because I really do think that they make the absolute best field blind one can purchase. And so, little plug for them, because we definitely use them. We have several we use here at the kennel, and first time I took one of our stud dogs, Archie, on a field hunt. He had just arrived from Scotland, and we go out in the field, and he's fully trained. He's won several field trials in the UK, but he's never been on a field hunt, so he's never seen a spread of a couple thousand decoys. He's never seen flyers and lucky ducks and full bodies bouncing in the wind. And then, of course, here's this blind I'm expecting him to get in. He had no clue how to get in there, so it's sort of a debacle before the sun comes up trying to get him to go in. He'd walk in one side and run right out the other and look at me like, hey, I did it. And so it was pretty difficult getting him in there. And then I realized, man, you really need to teach this, obviously, long before you wind up in the field. And so we begin with crates. We use different crates. We take the doors off of the crates, put them in the field, tell the dog to kennel. Hopefully the dog has learned crate training, and so is already comfortable with a crate. And with the door off, we tell the dog to kennel. Only use one word. Don't say, Archie, get in there, get in your place, go in, get in there, get your tail in there, or whatever. Just say one word: kennel, crate, blind, whatever you want to say. And so we teach them that one word. They get in. We reward them with a treat when they're young. When they're a little bit older, they go into the kennel, and we say, good dog. And we try to keep their head from coming out, and we toss a hand-thrown dummy. And then we send the dog with their name so long as they keep their head in. If you throw the dummy and they do not keep their head in, then we walk ourselves out, we pick the dummy up, and on the way back we stick our hand out and we say kennel. And that's pushing the dog backwards into the kennel. And so you use your body language with that, and they usually know, and they'll shrink back in. Good dog, throw it. And as soon as the dog keeps his head from poking out, then you send the dog on the retrieve. And so therefore the dog has been rewarded for doing what you want it to do, the behavior that is desired. And so we'll continue to do this, and we'll just take the crate, the kennel, everywhere with us on the training grounds. And we'll run water retrieves, and we'll run all sorts of setups, multiple marks, and drills, all from the kennel. And eventually, when the dog is very comfortable in the kennel, and you'll know when the dog is comfortable, you get to a point where the dog will bring you the bird, and as soon as you take the bird from the dog's mouth, the dog will just walk and get right back in his kennel. That's when you know you've got a dog that's figured it out. And then we'll switch to a dog blind. The reason we don't start with dog blinds is they're smaller, they can be a little bit intimidating, so we want to teach the command with something that the dog's already comfortable with, and something that's familiar, something that's a little bit easier and simple, and then we'll add the dog blind in. And you have to help your dog out. Sometimes they'll go in backwards and their tail's facing the decoy spread, and so you've got to get them back out and get them back around the right way. If you want to teach a dog how to do this with like a Rig'Em Right, where they can go in one side and out the other, then you can buy a rough tough kennel, and you can buy rough toughs that have doors on both sides. So you can still teach it with a kennel that way, a little bit bigger, a little bit easier. So we definitely encourage you guys to get out there. And one more thing that we do, we'll take our dogs that have been trained in a field blind, and we will line up all of our Rig'Em Right dog blinds on our back patio, and we'll have a cookout. And we'll put 5 or 6 dogs in the blinds, and the dogs have to remain in the blinds. Their heads can't come out while we run around, while we talk, while we play games, while the kids run around, while I cook, delicious steaks. And the dogs aren't allowed to react to any of that. And when they do, we don't punish them. We just say, no. We grab them by the lead, walk them back around, give the kennel command, say, good dog, as soon as they're back in it. And I can guarantee you, within no time, you'll have a dog that's able to spend really hours in the crate without breaking, without being tempted to run out with excitement. So get out there, practice with your field blinds, and hope you guys have some good hunts and kill lots of birds this week. If you have any questions or want to contact us, you can find us at www.southernoakkennels.com. Thank you, guys.
All right. As always, we'd like to thank Barton for contributing to the show and providing us this week's retriever training quick tip. You can check out Barton Ramsey and Southern Oak Kennels online on social media, all that good stuff. And again, thank you to Barton. All right, Dan, did you pick up anything from that segment that's going to allow you to help Kimber get more established in her blind? And more than a one-word answer would be appreciated.
Yeah, and every time that I listen to Barton, I just think, man, I wish that we would have started this 6 years ago when Kimber was a puppy. But, he makes a great point in using, crate training. So then they're used to a crate. The dog blinds are a little bit smaller. They can be uncomfortable. And, I think they could be intimidating for a dog when they can't see out the sides and, just getting into a smaller space. They're not comfortable with it. So, he makes great points again. And Kimber, yeah, I mean, she'll get in a blind and stay in there. Once you start shooting, she's gone with the wind. But that's my fault, not working with her enough. But, she'll stay in as long as the birds are still in the air and we get some shooting in. But, for him to say that he'll line up the Rig'Em Right blinds and dogs will be laying in the blinds while he's cooking steaks and, they're not allowed out until he says so. And, that just goes to what he has going down there at Southern Oak Kennels and the quality of dogs and how well they are trained. So, I mean, he has a great thing going down there and great tips for our listeners here.
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense for the common guy too, because, it's hard to find time to carve out, a lot of time to devote to training, especially when season's in, because you want to spend your free time hunting if you can. So doing stuff like this during family functions or barbecues or dinner time or whatever it is a great way to sort of double down on your time. So you're taking care of what you need to around the house, working on a skill that's going to transfer into the field with your pup. It's a win-win. So, I definitely think that that's one that a lot of guys can incorporate pretty easily. Yeah. Without a lot of, without a lot of extra work and a lot of stress.
Like you said, if he's cooking steaks and his dogs are staying in there, then that if they're out in a blind, they are going to be staying in there for hours. So, like I said, kudos to him and his training program, and he definitely knows what he's doing. So, thanks again to Barton for his tips.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of what led Barton into that tip this week, as I mentioned, is the fact that we're joined by Luke Clark, Public Relations and Media Manager for Rig'Em Right Waterfowl. And I don't really want to belabor this too much. So let's just jump right into the interview and, circle back when we get finished up and kind of discuss it then. So let's jump right into it in our discussion with Luke Clark of Rig'Em Right Waterfowl. All right, joining us on the show this week is a guy that is with a company that's been one of the most progressive and innovative companies in the waterfowl space, has really grown and sort of developed over the years, and we're really excited to have him on. Joining us this week is Luke Clark, Public Relations and Media Manager for Rig'Em Right Waterfowl. Luke, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No, the pleasure's all ours, and Rig'Em Right is a company that's it's fascinating to me, kind of how the company got started and sort of the niche that you all operate in, and to kind of see the growth of the company through the years and the product line and sort of all of that kind of stuff. So let's just start off a little bit by kind of discussing how Rig'Em Right came to be and sort of talk a little bit about just that niche in the market that was identified early on that you all were so successful in filling, and then how you've identified other areas in a quite frankly very competitive space to allow you guys to still be sort of an industry leader in the market that you're in.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Rig'Em Right was founded in 2006 by Matthew Cagle of Greenville, North Carolina. Matthew actually started this company out of his garage, believe it or not. He graduated from North Carolina State University with an engineering degree, and his goal pretty much was to create an anchor system that eliminated the hassle of wrapping string around keels and wanted to make something that was easier for an easier setup and takedown. So with that and that idea in place, Matthew set out building the anchor systems that we still sell tons of today, like I said, out of his garage. With the anchors also came our also famous original jerk rig. Matthew took an idea that's been around in duck hunting for honestly a really long time and perfected it by making it more mobile and easy to carry. I mean, he wanted to make a jerk rig that a guy could literally fit in his pocket. So with both of these products, at the time, really there wasn't much out there for waterfowlers. Some guys were kind of making some Texas rigs on their own and kind of doing that, but nobody had really started to produce and make it available for everyone, especially pre-assembled and just ready to open the package and put on your decoys. And then there again with the jerk rig, the same kind of thing. It was something that, guys were kind of making some homemade, jerk rig systems, and, a lot of them were permanent and just kind of sat at whatever duck hole, guys were hunting in, and nobody could really take it, from point A to point B. And with Matthew growing up hunting a lot of public land, he didn't have that luxury. So he wanted to create a jerk rig that, like I said, could fit in his pocket and just go from point A to point B if he had to be mobile or if he wasn't going to be hunting the same spot day in and day out.
It really doesn't matter what space you're in, but I'm always fascinated when people start companies in their garage. Like it's the American dream, and it's something that, I just think is awesome right off the start. But, there's a ton of times that I'm sitting at my desk, I'm, in an office, and it's, doing this work, doing that work. Take us behind the scenes a little bit, if you would, and just give us an idea what an average day around the Rig'Em Right office, contains there.
Sure. So it's kind of, it's something that is probably pretty common in the waterfowl industry, but we're a very small company. We consist of just a few core employees right here in the North Carolina office, with some also seasonal warehouse workers that help us during kind of our busy season and all of that. But basically, an average day at the office pretty much consists of, like I said, the 8 people there in the office. We all kind of wear a lot of hats. Like any small business, somebody that's handling finances is also handling customer service care and things like that. But if it's our busy season, we all are kind of all hands on deck, working hard to make sure that new products are arriving on time and then headed right back out our doors on time as well. I personally handle a lot of customer service calls, emails. I manage all of our social media efforts across several media outlets. And then I handle all of our PR efforts, such as interviews like this that we're doing right now.
It's always interesting for me to hear that because, I know it to be true, but it's just hard sometimes to wrap my head around, the fact that I can't open a single waterfowl magazine without seeing, a Rig'Em Right ad, or I can't go on social media without seeing a post from Rig'Em Right, or I can't go on, watch a TV show without seeing something from Rig'Em Right, or, what I'm getting at is it seems like so much gets done by so few people. It's just really astonishing, and I think when I open a Cabela's magazine and I see the product in there, I automatically want to assume that these are just these massive conglomerates of, all these great people that get to, work in the industry for a living, and they get to go on all these crazy hunts and do all this cool stuff, when really it does boil down to, like you said, just a handful of people that are really kind of making this all work behind the scenes. So it's really cool, to get to talk to guys like you that sort of live that day in and day out and just sort of see, but kind of pull the curtain back a little bit for us guys that, we see the end result, to hear you talk about the process leading through that is really a cool thing for me. And it kind of leads me to my next question for you all. And, a lot of the marketing that you guys put out, the slogan that you're running with is, heavily seasoned. And, it's
Right.
it's kind of a feel, a lot of the ads and things like that. And, you spoke about Matthew, and, if any of you guys listening to the show follow him on social media and stuff, he's big into surfing, and he's kind of, he's got this other part of his life that's maybe not as traditionally associated with a waterfowl hunter or something like that. So it's just kind of a unique mold in that regard. But I wondered if you could just sort of speak to the culture of the company. And, when you look at some of the products that you produce and some of the apparel and stuff, it's different than what you see other companies doing in this space. And I'm sort of wondering just sort of how you all came to, to find that niche in this, in a space that we've already mentioned is super competitive, and kind of how you came to feel that, sort of that heavily seasoned, moniker sort of fit what you guys were doing there with Rig'Em Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and thanks for the kind words there too. So yeah, the whole, I guess, culture and that kind of heavily seasoned marketing slogan that we use, it's kind of it's an evolution that's kind of happened over the almost 10 years that Rig'Em Right's been in business. It hasn't been a slogan we've used for the full, I guess, 9.5 years, but it's something that rooted all the way back to the original decoy anchors. You can tie it in with, and yeah, kind of like you were saying, Matthew, he's a duck hunter to the core, but he's also got a deep love for surfing, and I think that plays in so many different ways, because surfing, a lot like waterfowl, attracts such a deep culture, and it's got such a rich history that you can't help but appreciate it. And something that kind of ties in, like you mentioned, our apparel. From our beanies to the look of the hats we make, the t-shirts, even the hooded sweatshirts, all kind of have a little bit of an influence from the surfing industry to an extent. Obviously, we want to still appeal to waterfowl hunters and that audience, but we're not afraid to kind of, I guess, break the mold, if you will, to make some products that kind of push the envelope and might appeal to a little bit different audience as well. But that being said, I think that our overall branding and the heavily seasoned still attracts to kind of that idealistic waterfowler that every waterfowl hunter wants to be. And it's kind of that rugged, heavily seasoned waterfowler who's been, kind of through it all, seen all the different situations, hunted ducks from North Dakota to Louisiana and anywhere and everywhere in between. And I think we've done a really good job of kind of capturing the essence of that idealistic hunter within our brand and within all of our product line.
The first time that I saw a heavily seasoned come out, it was like a showstopper for me. I was like, man, that is perfect, like absolutely perfect. And, just you try and think of your own things, like with, HP and going through. But, when that came out, it was, like you said, you capture the entire waterfowl experience by saying that. But, and my next question to you, you guys are in a very competitive space, and, we follow a lot of forums, a lot of top companies like, Sitka and everything out there. So, you guys put out amazing products, and, you came out with a new bag and, all kinds of different things. But, how do you talk about the research and development a little bit? How do you guys stay ahead of the competition?
It's kind of tricky, because when you boil it down, the waterfowl industry really is no different than any other industry. And all industries are competitive. Chevy versus Ford, Case International tractors versus John Deere. You name the industry, you're going to find high levels of competition. So really the waterfowl industry is no different. I'm sure all of our competitors will tell you that they want to make a high quality product, and they all do to some degree or level. But I'll just go ahead and read you. This is Rig'Em Right's mission statement. Our mission has always been and always will be to design, build, and supply the most innovative and high-performance hunting products available at a reasonable price. We will not succumb to outside pressure to cheapen our products, and will continue to take bold steps and huge risks to separate ourselves from our competition. We will dominate in customer service, knowing that our end-use customers are the very backbone of our existence. Above all else, we will operate with honesty and integrity, and will treat people fairly, never compromising these principles in the pursuit of profit. So, with that being said, you can kind of tell what we do, we take very, very seriously. We put so much effort in making sure that we have products that people want to use and can trust, and we leave little room for error. You can't make a product that has flaws in this industry. It's just that simple. Your customer base is your entire backbone, and if they begin to lose trust in your products, you lose almost everything needed to have a successful brand.
It's funny. It's really funny that you bring this up because we have a listeners group on Facebook where some of the guys listen to this show, dialogue with us, and we talk about things. And just today I mentioned in there about, duck calls and things like that. And, it's amazing just how, and I am as guilty of this as anyone, maybe even more so, how brand loyal I tend to be in things when I'm purchasing waterfowl gear. And it's just one of those things where it's comfortable for me to just purchase from the same company that I've always purchased for whatever reason. And I can't imagine, how much time and effort and energy goes into building a brand like you talk about that can be trusted, so that when, I buy my first Rig'Em Right Waterfowl product, that becomes the loyalty, that I have such a good experience that my loyalty shifts to you. And now when I buy decoys, I automatically think, I need to get some rigs from Rig'Em Right to get myself squared away or set up, or, it's time for a new blind bag. Let me go online and see what Rig'Em's got, whatever the case might be. It's always one of those things where I think about how fiercely loyal to brands people can be. And coming from, a pretty long line of, deer hunting and archery hunting backgrounds, you see it a lot with Hoyt and Matthews and Bowtech and companies like that.
Sure.
Just how people, they're on message forums, it's like they're ready to drop the gloves defending, their Matthews bow, when in all reality, Hoyt makes a dang good bow too, and it's just really interesting for me, the dynamic of that, and with the outdoor industry as a whole, and how much all of that goes into it. So a little sidebar on that, so I apologize, but let me shift back here to sort of relevant stuff if I can. Dan and I, we talk a lot on our show about motion, and we have a unique situation where I live in a state where we can run battery powered spinning wing decoys and things like that to incorporate motion into our spread. Dan, living in Pennsylvania, does not have that luxury. So we kind of sit on opposite sides of the table when it comes to motion. And Rig'Em Right, as you mentioned, has some options, for the non battery powered hunter that they can utilize. And I'm curious to hear you sort of speak to not only those rigs, because you've done that a little bit with the jerk cord, but you mentioned right off the bat that one of the core products that Matthew developed in the garage was a jerk rig that could fit in his pocket. So, he's hunting pressured land, he's on the move. So obviously early on, the company is founded on a principle that a portable non-battery powered motion system is important. So talk to us a little bit more about, why that particular type of setup has been such a focal point and, been the foundation for a lot of your success, and sort of why that's important to incorporate in any spread.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, anyone who's waterfowl hunted, whether you're new to it or you've been doing it for forever, every waterfowler can agree that motion's crucial. And I think it just kind of depends on the amount of experience a waterfowler has to understand exactly how crucial it is. It's very easy to, instantly associate motion with, spinning wing decoy, which always have their place in certain aspects of waterfowl hunt. I personally love hunting mallards at a dry fields with spinning wing decoys. It just seems to be something that just goes hand in hand, But with that also is what goes hand in hand with hunting ducks over the water. And that is, I think any waterfowler could agree that motion is crucial. Whether you're hunting, mallards in a dry field and you need a spinning wing decoy, or in our case, you're hunting ducks over water and you need some sort of motion. Something I think is just so overlooked is the idea of motion, and realistic motion at that. What comes into play is a jerk rig, and in particular our jerk rig, and the several jerk rigs that we make now. We actually have 3 in the lineup, 2 that work identical. Honestly, it's just our original jerk rig, and then new for this year we came out with a step-up jerk rig, which was the same concept as the original jerk rig. You're still pulling 4 decoys, but you're able to have a little bit bigger, a little more comfortable handle to hold on to, as well as the bag that you carry it in now floats. But then our other jerk rig that we have that I think is something that is extremely beneficial for any waterfowler is our Mega Motion jerk rig. So I'll step back a little bit and kind of explain the importance of just motion in the water first. If you're looking at ducks and scouting ducks on the water, you can't deny that they're busybodies. They're constantly moving. They're constantly trying to get past each other, and they're super aggressive. So with that comes a lot of motion in the water and a lot of ripples. Ripples are key. You can have the best hide and the prettiest camouflage jacket and honestly the prettiest decoys on the market, but if it's dead calm and those pretty decoys aren't moving, you're not going to look all that realistic to the ducks flying over you. With the jerk rig, what that does is that brings your whole decoy setup to life. And kind of depending on the situation and where you're hunting, and as you know, waterfowl hunting is so situational, it kind of depends on how much motion you need. And if you do need a lot of splash or a lot of ripple, we kind of tell people that if you're, hunting smaller spreads and maybe even hunting areas where ducks are used to spinning wing decoys, we recommend just try a jerk rig. Don't try something with flash, just try a jerk rig. Try just getting the ripples in the water and seeing if that, creates a different effect for them when it comes to duck hunting. So kind of going back now to the Mega Motion jerk rig that I was talking about. This rig is actually, the idea is to basically put 3 jerk rigs into one. And with that, what we did is our original jerk rig was able to hold 4 decoys. So the Mega Motion, we wanted to basically take 3 of those 4 rig systems, attach them to one single pole, but be able to run the 3 different arms at any different angle you would like. And depending on the angle, kind of depends on the amount of wake and then the amount of ripple and so forth. So what we did is we kind of developed this for guys who are doing one of 2 things. Either guys who are running really big decoy spreads where a small amount of ripples just doesn't look realistic. You've got 100, 200 decoys out, and only 4 of them are really swimming around creating some ripples. It's still not going to look right. But now you've got a dozen decoys rippling around. It's going to start causing a little bit bigger wake. The other guy that we really wanted to appeal to with this is actually timber hunters. We talked to some timber guys that talked about how they can't get enough ripple and motion. You always picture the guy leaned up against, the cypress tree and he's kicking the water and splashing around, making, a ton of noise. Well, this kind of eliminates that. So now you're able to just sit there and pull on the jerk rig, and you're creating, a ton of wake, and depending on the pole and the way you've got it angled, you're creating a lot of splash and a lot of that sound that sounds super natural in the timber. So, that's kind of the way our 2 jerk rigs work. But yeah, I can't stress enough, motion over the water. I will take ripples over flash any day.
Yeah, I saw that Mega Motion and it definitely caught my eye. It's probably going to end up in my bag here pretty soon. But I definitely, being a PA here, you try and get as much motion as you can. So I don't know how many times I've tried to rig up, do it yourself rigs, and I got on Rig'Em Right, bought the jerk rig, and that's definitely in my bag now. And like you said, it does fit in your pocket. It's nice and easy to get around, and definitely something I love. But let me ask you about, we talked about Texas rigs a little bit, and you guys do have different weight systems, and I was wondering about some different scenarios, and where would they work best for some of the guys that are looking to buy some of the new rigs. And another question on top of that, talk about maybe the cord that you do use on your Texas rigs, because I've had other companies to where I throw my rig out and my decoy ends up floating away, and it's not because of the weight, but there's actually a kink in the line, and the weight didn't make it all the way to the bottom, so it just gently floated out into the lake, and I had no way of getting it. I guess I need to train my dog to pick up decoys or something. But anyways, that was I ended up getting more of the Rig'Em Right ones just due to that fact.
Well, yeah. So the biggest difference in our weight systems, our anchor systems, is basically it kind of boils down to two different styles. Our original decoy anchor system that we developed, or Matthew developed, was off the basis of a true Texas rig, which I'll kind of go into here in a minute. But the original anchor system for us basically consists of a fixed swivel that you would clip to the decoy, and the weight slides up or down the line, and that's how it self-adjusts. Now, the Texas rig style rigs are where the weight is fixed, but the swivel slides up and down the line, so your decoy slides up and down the line. It kind of boils down to a preference. We kind of get the question a lot, well, and which one do I buy? Do I buy the Texas rig or the original anchor? I tell a lot of guys, just kind of depending on exactly the scenario they're hunting, it kind of boils down to preference. But that being said, it does really rely on the scenarios they're hunting, because we have started to develop, especially I want to say within the last year, we've really added in quite a few new, I guess, weight, size, and lengths to our lineup to appeal to as many hunters as we could. So, like one rig we have now is an 18-inch rig with, I believe it's a 6-ounce anchor, and that's for guys that are hunting shallow rivers, or even guys that are hunting like flooded rice down in Arkansas, and that's the Texas style rig. And actually, one thing I didn't mention, but another difference between the original and the Texas style in our lineup is on the original anchors we use kind of the egg-shaped sinker, but then on our Texas rigs we use a really unique diamond shape. The diamond shape works really, really well for guys that are hunting like a hard bottom or sand bottom, lake or river or whatever, because what happens is those egg sinkers tend to, unless you stomp them in, tend to kind of want to roll across the bottom, especially say in like a high wind situation or a river with a lot of current. So what these diamond-shaped weights do on our Texas rigs is they actually kind of dig themselves in. So the more resistance there is, the more they're going to actually dig themselves in, ultimately stopping the decoy from rolling away or drifting away. So that's kind of like, that's what we kind of usually go through when we are suggesting anchors to people is, what is your situation and where exactly do you hunt? If you ask me what I use, I stick with our 54-inch original anchors with the 6-ounce egg weights. I've always had them. Maybe I'm just biased towards them, but that's what I've always put on my decoys, even on my goose decoys as well. I mean, that's kind of always been my thing. And then to touch on what you were kind of curious about as far as like our line goes and what we use, Well, honestly, it's as simple as we just use a super heavy-duty monofilament. It's actually a black-coated fishing line that we use, but we found that monofilament has very little memory, if you will, which memory is what causes kinks in line and things like that. And some
disappearing decoys.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see some people making their own or some other brands out there that kind of use a line that's similar to almost like a weed eater line, and that has a lot of memory. So that's where you do get the kinks and, like you said, the disappearing decoys and all of that. So we've just found this monofilament been kind of the best thing. It's still lightweight. It's not very heavy, and it's got low memory.
So you mentioned, the different styles and, just kind of figuring out what your hunting situation is and what's going to work best for you. And that got me kind of thinking, recently, on the show, we've talked about, we had a segment of what we called Bear Essentials duck hunting. So basically, we talked specifically about those quick hunts, 35, 40 minutes before work, after work, right at dark, that kind of thing. One of the things that we talked about, was how many decoys do you want to take with you and all that kind of stuff. But, the underlying theme was there, you want to get out there and you want to be able to deploy your spread quickly and you want to get ready to hunt. If you got 40 minutes to hunt, you don't want to spend 10 of them, stringing decoys and all that kind of stuff. So talk about a system that might work best for a scenario like that. And then I'm curious if you could touch on, what about if you're in a situation where the water depth is a little bit deeper and a little bit tougher, for the kind of systems that we've been talking about. For example, I hunt tidal rivers a lot, and the water swells can swing from a couple 2.5 feet each time, and depending on wind, sometimes I can have a really tough time keeping my decoys in place. And it's not that the weights don't touch the bottom, it's just there's not enough cord there to create that angle to help with the drag type of scenario. So I'm just sort of curious if there's any kind of tips or better ways to go about that maybe you can mention that would help me personally.
Well, yeah, no. So actually, I can kind of knock out two birds with one stone here. So say a guy is wanting to have a really quick hunt. Well, first I'll just say, if they have the spot or the place that calls for the preset anchors that we have, there's not a quicker system to use. But that being said, say this, the same scenario, but the person has a spot like you said that you're dealing with influx of tides or there is just too deep for a preset anchor. We actually make what's called our deluxe game rig kit, and it's a super simple kit. It does take a little assembly just right off the bat, but then once it's assembled, it's very easy to use. But it comes with giant spool of mainline rope. You get 3 dozen what we call gang rig drops, and they're 3-foot drops that will one end attached to the decoy and then one end attached to the line. And then what you do is essentially you just run it's like long lines that guys that diver hunt or have always used for years and years. What we found is it's a super efficient system. It's fast to set up and take down, and no matter what duck you're hunting, whether it's mallards or Canada geese or divers, at some point they're all going to swim in a row. At some point. So, because we kind of get this great debate of, do I really want all my decoys in a single file line or this and that? I can safely say that I've killed a lot of ducks and geese over, single file rows of decoys. And yeah, for the guy that's on a time crunch and has a depth issue, that would be, probably the best solution I could think of. It's got, I want to say it's 300 feet of main line, so you can obviously cut it down if you kind of know your depths, but you've got 300 feet to work with. And, unless you're hunting way out in the ocean, I don't know anybody that can't use 300 feet of line.
So going off, with the Bear Central hunting and getting out there quick, not all of them are like that, and some guys make quite a trek to get into their hunting spots, and it always seems like there's so many options. Do you go with the 6-slot bag? Do you go with the mesh bag on your back? What do you find is the best way to travel with all the different rig setups?
Yeah, so there again, it kind of boils down to how long of a hike and how many decoys you want and all of that. But we've done a really good job kind of creating a line of bags that accommodate pretty much anything or any situation a duck hunter needs, whether, like I said, so new for this year, for example, we came out with our refuge runner decoy bag, which we had in mind for the guy who is hunting public land, who, is a diehard public land hunter who knows, I don't need to be the guy hunting closest to, the parking lot, but I need to be the guy as far away from the parking lot as possible because that's where the ducks are. Or, there's guys out in California that are walking 2 or 3 miles to get to their spot. Well, this refuge runner bag was designed for them. And what we wanted to do was we created a bag that it'll hold roughly 3 dozen, oversized mallards, or, the combinations are endless. I mean, I've been able to fit actually 8 dozen teal in this bag. But from there, you're able to hang our anchor systems at the top of the bag off of some D-rings that we've incorporated in. And then the bag closes. It's got a wide mouth design. It closes up, and you can cinch it down. But then some of the cool features that come with that are you have a spot to strap your shotgun to on one side. On the opposite side, you have a spot to strap a spinning wing decoy if you can use it in whatever state that said hunter is in. And then we've integrated a really nice and comfortable EVA molded foam backrest and back support system basically in it, with really comfortable shoulder straps and waist belt. So once you get it on and get it strapped down, you don't have the decoy kind of jabbing you in the side or in the back or something like that as you're walking it out. Because as you know, that's not fun to do at 3 a.m. when you're trying to, wade in the water or walk down a levee. But yeah, so I mean, with that, we also make the slotted decoy bags for the guy that, he might not have as long of a hike and he can still manage just, it's okay to throw something over their shoulder and they just need to take a dozen decoys out. We've got 12-slot duck bags or the 6-slot goose bags that do that as well. And then, kind of our signature line of bags, which originally were our DP3 bags. We kind of had some confusion because people thought, oh no, you got rid of the DP3 bags. Well, we kept them. All we did was we gave them a name change and we did some slight improvements to each bag, which the name changes are originally a DP3 Light is now a Gunslinger, and the DP3 Standard is now a Long Haul, and then the DP3 XL is now the Tinker XL, which, like I said, all we did was we slapped the new names on them, and then we, like in the Long Haul, we added a few more holes for in the bottom to help it drain better. But that's a great bag, the Long Haul, for kind of similar situation for the guy that's doing the refuge runner bag, where he's got a little bit longer trek, but maybe not as long because he can still hold, a shotgun in hand or blind bag in the other hand or things like that. But if you need to put a bag or you need to put decoys in a bag, chances are we probably make one that suits your needs.
That the refuge runner sounds pretty awesome with the gun holder. I think that's definitely something that I could utilize on some of my walks. But, last question here for you. We don't need to take up too much more of your time, but, my nephew lives down in North Carolina, down in Raleigh, and it might be me wanting him to get into waterfowl, or it might be me wanting him to stop coming up here and killing all of our big bucks during rifle season, so maybe he could stay down there a little longer. But, what does North Carolina have for waterfowl opportunities and, just a typical season, like as far as, bird flight and migration? What do you guys see down there?
Yeah, so no, that's a great question. Actually, and I'll kind of give you a brief background on myself. I'm actually a recent transplant to North Carolina. I'm originally from South Central Illinois, so basically, Illinois is known for corn being the king, and where the Canada geese are huge. So hunting here is a lot different. But that being said, there's tons of opportunity in North Carolina. North Carolina's got a really deep history in waterfowling, especially up around the Outer Banks in that area. But we pretty much have the opportunity to chase puddle ducks inland and even on the coast. We also have a really good diver population, especially redheads, which for me that was kind of cool because we didn't kill a whole lot of redheads in Illinois, so I was kind of excited about that. But yeah, for I guess a typical season, you can count on hunting teal early on if you're willing to brave the mosquitoes. Wood ducks in some of the swamps and ponds and a few of the rivers around here. And then, like I said, it's almost a sure go anywhere on the coast or in the Sound to hunt divers. And then something I haven't gotten to do yet, but it seems to be really popular out here, is swan hunting. As soon as I get a tag, that's going to be like that. It's definitely on my short list to do. I'd really would like to get out and shoot a swan. Everyone I talk to says it's a blast. So there's tons of opportunity in North Carolina to get out if you're a waterfowl hunter.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds a lot like kind of what I see here in Virginia, but you got to have at least a part of you that misses those big migration days in Southern Illinois that you're probably used to for a long time.
Oh yeah. No, there's still a little bit of that in me, but I feel a cold north wind, and I start thinking, oh man, I'm missing a duck, like the duck migration, or I'm missing Canada geese moving down or whatever. But I'm still able to make it back in the wintertime to get my fix. So all is good.
Well, we certainly appreciate you carving out some time for us here today. I mentioned earlier that you can't really look at any kind of waterfowl publication or Facebook or anything without seeing something from Rig'Em Right. But in the event that someone has managed to miss you, where can they go to check out all your guys' stuff, social media, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we're all over social media. I kind of like to say we're on the big three, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We've got a YouTube page that we're active on, as well as we started a Snapchat account, which starting this fall should be something that'll be really cool for guys to kind of follow as we go on our hunting trips and things like that, and give folks a chance to kind of see the inside, a little more personal side of Rig'Em Right, inside the office and things like that as well. And then if you're not on social media, or that's not your thing, you can check us out at rig'emright.com. We've got our whole list of products and a really nice interactive website that is really easy to function and or go through and very user friendly. So yeah, if you do a Google search of Rig'Em Right, you shouldn't have any problem finding us.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. But again, we appreciate you making some time for us, and I particularly appreciate you taking some time to sort of not only explain the products that you offer, but how they can be applied in the field by the guys that are listening to this show. Because maybe they're hunting in some of these situations and haven't found the right solution for what they're trying to do, and maybe they didn't realize that you offered a product that might be able to accommodate or address the need that they have. So we certainly appreciate that, and we encourage everyone to check out Rig'Em Right, obviously. And honestly, we just want to say thank you again, and we appreciate you making some time, and best of luck to you guys this season down in North Carolina.
Hey, you bet. Thanks so much for having me on. It was a blast.
All right, thank you to Luke and for giving us some time. And the guys down at Rig'Em Right are just so accommodating, just really, really cool guys. And it was a pleasure to speak with him and have him on the show. Dan, we got into a little bit of kind of a little bit different angle with him than we have maybe in some of our other interviews, and talked about sort of the culture around the company and kind of how things work. And I know I kind of speak for you when I say this, that that goes a long way with me when I'm looking at mine, my waterfowl and equipment and stuff like that. I want to know that the guys that are responsible on the other end of this product are guys that I could see myself sitting in the blind with and having a good time, and are in the sport and in the industry for the same reasons that I'm kind of into waterfowl hunting. And I definitely got that feeling by spending some time talking with Luke.
Yeah, and I'd like to support any company that starts out of their garage. If you can do that, a startup company out of your own garage, and make it into something that you see, if not daily, if not hourly or minutely on social media and every magazine that you pick up, like it's a cool success story for that company. And there's a few companies out there like it, and it just I really enjoy just hearing the backstory like that, and the products that these guys are coming up with, because they are in the field and hunting, and it would be tough to go to work when that you could be out using your products or testing your products, but they do a good job, and they wear a lot of different hats around the office. So kudos to them. And I still think that Refuge Runner is in my near future to be on my back with a gun holder and everything. So keep it up, Rig'Em Right, and we enjoy your product.
Yeah, I think that kind of product is perfect for a lot of the type of hunting that you do. So I'd be interested to see, what you had to say about that, if you end up getting one of those. But, yeah, the Rig'Em Right story is a great one, how they came to be. And, it always, just something that kind of I have a hard time wrapping my head around, how, you just come up with an idea in a space that's so competitive as it is, and all of a sudden it just takes off, and overnight it's like, bam, you're there and you're onto something. So really cool opportunity that they've really been able to capitalize on and do a nice job. So thank you again to Luke and everyone at Rig'Em Right Waterfowl. Definitely appreciate the time. So that pretty much wraps it up for this week, Dan. I know you're getting ready to get up early in the morning and take a little family not vacay, but a family trip this weekend. So no woods for you or marsh for you this weekend, and certainly none for me because we're not in season, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't really know what I'm going to do with myself tomorrow. I mean, I feel like I need to go to like Gander Mountain or something just to sort of, I don't know, get a little outdoor exposure, but I'll probably watch some football and that'll be about all.
Go to Bass Pro or your Orvis shop. How's the fly fishing going? Are you still nailing them or what?
Well, I haven't been able to get out as much lately because we've been traveling a little bit for some family stuff, and I've really been trying to build up my points this year with my wife, so that when the season comes in, that I can really put in some time. And I've got some vacation saved up from work, and I'm really trying to kind of play my cards right this year and maximize the season. So haven't been able to get out as much as I'd like to, but I'm definitely going to hit it hard this spring when the winter comes off and they're stocking trout real good, and try to refine the craft a little bit. But I've said it a million times on this show that I need a new hobby, like I need a hole in the head. And for some reason I've got this itch right now to build an AR platform rifle. So I've been doing a lot of time researching that. So that might be something in my near future too. But I can't seem to figure out what I want to do other than hunt ducks. So hopefully someday something else will stick, but haven't quite found that thing yet.
That's not bad. Not a bad thing. And also,
you're killing me. You're killing me.
Not a bad thing. And you recently found that canvas back limits have went up in your area.
Yeah, that's a great point that I forgot completely about. For whatever reason, I must have just missed it when I was looking through the regulations this year when they came out, but they increased the bag limit for canvas backs to 2 birds this year in my area. So I'm really fired up about that, because that's one of the, we see a lot of canvas backs around here, and it's really hard only shooting 1. So the fact that we get 2 per man now, at least it gives you a little leeway there, kind of when you get a flock in, if there's two birds real close together or something, it kind of happens so quick, you just never know. So this gives you that buffer, which is nice. And I would love to see our bluebill limit go up a little bit, maybe by a bird or so, but we're stuck at 2 right now, and, 2 redheads as well. So still can put together a nice little mixed diver spread, but, man, it's nice to get another canvasback. It's just, one of my favorite birds out there. So really excited to hopefully get another opportunity on them this year.
Yeah, I hope you shoot a couple and get them mounted.
I should be getting my first canvasback here in the next couple months. Here by the end of the year, I'm hoping to have it. So definitely we'll be putting some pictures out about that. First canvasback ever killed, shot it in Virginia in November, just unheard of. Just an awesome hunt. I can close my eyes right now and picture it like it literally just happened. So, I'm really excited to get that bird back, and that's one that's definitely going to be etched in my mind forever. So, that's something that's come up on the listeners group lately, is about, taxidermy and bird mounts and stuff. And that's something that I'm going to really make a more conscious effort to get more birds mounted. And, if I can do 1 a year minimum, that's sort of going to be my goal. I just think it's super cool. It's super important for, my son to see ducks and help foster that, the passion that I have, I think is cool. So definitely going to try to add to the, the mount collection. And I recently saw a nice mount of a black duck that, I thought would look really good in my basement. So that's on my radar for sure. Anything else you got before we wrap this one up?
No, man. Episode 44. We're getting pretty deep here, so we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, I know seasons are really starting to get in full swing. I'm seeing people putting pictures on Facebook with some snow on the ground, so gonna get a couple cold fronts, hopefully moving birds around, which is great. So yeah, hopefully good times ahead for everyone. But before we wrap up the show, we do want to just take a moment to thank the partners of our show that, at least in some part, help make this this show possible. Sitka Gear, Sport Ear. You can go to Sport Ear's website, use the HP Outdoors discount code, and receive $10 off any purchase that you make through their website. You can also go to the DeLorme website and use the discount code HP Outdoors. That one's case sensitive, all uppercase, and that'll get you $10 off the Earthmate app that will turn your smartphone, your iPhone, whatever, into a handheld GPS. Just a phenomenal app. I've raved about it a bunch on this show. Really, really like that. So definitely check it out. Also like to thank Big Al Silhouette Decoys and Higdon Outdoors for their support of this show.
I was going to say...
That's pretty much it, Dan.
I was going to say one more thing.
What else?
With anyone that is on Facebook, the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast listeners group that we have on there is super cool, super friendly. We have a few guys on there that are, the one gentleman is taking his son out and his brother. It is their first opening day. They have hunted before, but the anticipation for their first opener together, and there really is like a cheering section for them to go out and have a good day. So, that'll be tomorrow, which is Saturday, and this will be coming out Monday. So when he listens, we wish you well, and hopefully you guys have a great time afield. And remember, it's not about, killing all the birds, but spending time out there. And like you always say, there's no bag limit on memories made. So
that's right. I do say that.
I hope they enjoy their time out and, really start to get into it there. So,
you know what? I'm really glad that you brought this up, because when I saw that post, I literally thought about hunts that I can remember with my grandfather and, my family hunting. And I thought to myself, this is one of those days that guy's son is going to remember for his entire life. I mean, this is the day, these are the times, these are the moments that he's got no idea. His son has no idea how much this day is going to mean to him 10, 15, 20 years down the road. That is just the coolest thing to me. And I'm so fired up to do the same thing with my son. And I know I speak for you, Dan, when I say that, but that's really what we're about on this show. We're about community and just fostering, a brotherhood of waterfowl hunters, because we all feel the same thing, and I felt the guy's excitement just through his Facebook post, as silly as that sounds. I felt his excitement, and I I got excited because I know how big of a deal that is for not only him, but for his son and his brother. That's a day that they're all going to remember forever. You only get a first time once. So they'll definitely remember that. Wish those guys the best of luck. Hope they get the flight of a lifetime and really knock them out. So best of luck to them and best of luck to everybody that's heading out this weekend. Hope you guys bang them up and post some pictures to us on Facebook so we can check it out and enjoy the success with you guys. All right, that does it for this, the 44th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We'd like to thank you guys for making the time to listen to our show. If you'd like to catch up on any of our past episodes, you can go over to iTunes and check out everything there, as well as hpoutdoors.com. If you got questions, comments, feedback for the show, info at HP Outdoors is where you can send that, or you can hit us up on any of the social media platforms. We're really active on there, and we'll get back to you in no time at all. So thanks again for listening. Best of luck this weekend. Get out in the blind and have at it. All right, stop recording.